Now, we end a period of apprehension today with the release of Karate Kid Legends, which I have seen. I went my best to go in with an open mind. I was nervous about this film. After the high of Cobra Kai, after my love of the original Karate Kid films, I was nervous on several fronts. One, I didn't know if Ralph Macchio would be able to carry this film without a really great supporting cast. Now, of course, what I didn't realize is that Ralph Macchio wasn't intended to carry this film. In fact, his presence in it is very, very minuscule, which is a disappointment considering the way it was marketed. I also wasn't 100% sure whether or not this film was going to actually be tied in or related to the other Karate Kid reboot film, which I never saw. I knew Jackie Chan was in both. Looking it up on Internet Movie Database, I saw that his character name is the same. But what little I actually knew of that reboot film, it didn't seem to me to be portraying the same character. I've since read on Internet Movie Database that it is technically a sequel to that film, but events of this film and flashbacks that are contained within it, no spoilers, don't suggest any actual connection to that film. So if you go into this without having seen that film, you lose absolutely nothing. In fact, the flashbacks look to be from an entirely different film that never existed, as far as I can tell. Now, having said that, Karate Kid Legends, new film, just releasing today, running at an hour and 34 minutes. Karate Kid Legends is directed by Jonathan Entwistle. I really hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm looking at it now. It looks like Entwistle. Written by Robert Lieber and Robert Mark Kamen. It's a pretty brisk hour and 30 minutes runtime. It doesn't feel long. It clips along at a good pace. Now, for the positives, this film is filled with a cast with great chemistry and charisma overall, with a couple of exceptions, which we'll get to. Jackie Chan, in this instance, is going to be the predominant sensei of this particular film. His Mr. Chan is the foundation in which this entire film is built. Daniel LaRusso is almost ancillary. He didn't actually need to be in here. The connections are tenuous at best, and bringing him on for what is essentially a very rushed prelude to a third act was superfluous. I don't think he really had a real good solid presence in the film or a justification for being there, nor was his presence as a character impacting the story significant really on any level. And unfortunately, that's probably the biggest downfall of this film for me when it comes to putting this in a perspective of a Karate Kid entry. Ben Wang, who portrays character Li Fong, and his mother, Ming Na Wen, who plays a doctor living in China, moved to the United States, to New York City, to start over after a family tragedy involving Kung Fu. She wants to separate her son from that environment after such a tragedy, and a fresh start seems to be in order for her. Now, of course, as a foreigner now living in a new city, poor kid gets himself into all kinds of situations, as so often happens in this kind of film, and fighting now becomes a way of life. Kung Fu now becomes a means of self-defense. And guess what? There's a tournament, right? He meets a young lady by the name of Mia, whose father, Victor, played by Joshua Jackson, whom I haven't seen in over 20 years. They run a pizza place. He befriends them in the neighborhood. And in a really kind of a convoluted sense, the owner of a local dojo, or gym as they're calling it, is something of a mob boss loan shark type who loaned money to Mia's father, Victor, for his business. He's a former boxer. He's having trouble paying it back. The henchmen are coming to collect money, and he enlists Lee's help in teaching him a little bit of his kung fu to improve his former boxing skills so that he can get back into the ring kick some ass, make some money, and get himself out of debt. Now, on its own, that probably would have been a decent enough story without anything else. Kind of been a cool way for Lee to establish a new life in New York City, to redeem himself from the personal tragedies that he and his mother have gotten away from, and help a family reestablish a good, positive life for themselves. As it is, this particular aspect of the story overwhelms the second act, which leaves very little room for growth for his character, his journey, and for the actual story that's supposed to be told. Because you get this long sequence of him helping them run the business, him helping train Victor, and then ultimately getting into the ring to fight, and the consequences of what happens there, which bog things down almost to a screeching halt for a minute before things are immediately jump-started back into gear with only a very short period of time to now get Lee in this position where he needs to use his own skills to get fighting, to get training, to get into this new tournament, and to hopefully win. That brings me to the motivations for getting into this tournament. What are they? Not 100% clear, as far as I'm concerned. Lee's personal tragedy of the past has left him in something of a PTSD, panic attack situation where he freezes up despite having a lot of skill under his belt that he can rely on a regular basis. During certain events in this film, he freezes up. But then out of nowhere, he decides, hey, I need to fight in this tournament. Why? To get him sense of self back? Maybe. To redeem himself? Maybe. To help out the overall situation? Maybe. None of that is actually ever really firmly rooted. But Jackie Chan's character then comes to visit from China as a little bit of a motivational thing. Get him going, and then consequently from there flies to California to elicit Daniel's help in training this kid. Again, Daniel doesn't do a whole lot. Now, where the performances overall being great, where they fall flat is the antagonist, the number one student of this gym, who has been the champion of this particular tournament for the last several years, and his instructor. Neither of them as characters are given much to work with. Neither of them, the teacher himself, is hardly even featured. He's mostly a background character watching in the wings or yelling at people. The antagonist student, kind of a school bully. He's also the ex-boyfriend of Lee's new love interest, this Mia girl, the daughter of Victor, who owns the pizza shop. So much as in like the original Karate Kid, he's getting to know her, and the jealous ex-boyfriend is poking his head and causing trouble. But that's pretty much the extent of what you see of his character, other than a couple of random training sequences of him and seeing him angry and talk some smack. That's the full extent of it, right? And then all of a sudden, boom, here's your really brief training montage, which lasts in their real time of 7 days. Jumps into the tournament. Boom, 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 bam, 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 bam. Boom, done. Now, while, like I said, you get a lot of charismatic performances, which really help carry the story. Great. Had a good time with it. I would actually give this a solid recommendations for entertainment value. But there's too much packed into this hour-and-a-half runtime. And that's the biggest problem of all. It's trying to tell two separate stories. It doesn't have time for. Pick one. One or the other. Make two separate films. That probably would work too. I like this movie. The actual, I would say, epilogue at the very tail end of it. No spoilers. Made my day. It's probably my favorite part of the film, surprisingly, the last 45 seconds or so. See it for yourself to find out. Overall, this review's too long, so I'm going to cut it down now. Thank you for joining me. If you're a fan of the franchise, I think it's worth a look. I think you overall will probably enjoy it. The characters, the actors, everything else did a pretty solid job with it. So, great entertainment. Just don't think too much about it.